These horses were worth their weight in gold because they weren't carrying ordinary cargo. They were loaded with cash totaling $200 million. But as the convoy navigated a treacherous cliff face, one of the horses lost its footing and plummeted into the abyss. The violent impact sent countless bills scattering in the wind. Surprisingly, the Special Forces soldiers didn't look devastated. Instead, they actually smiled. A few days earlier, one of the soldiers had accidentally smashed through a wall, only to discover it was stuffed with cash. His teammates immediately got to work, completely tearing down the entire wall.
Holy shit! What'd I tell you, boys?
As chunks of debris fell away, stacks of bills came tumbling out, a sight that left them absolutely stunned. The men frantically stuffed money into bags until their vehicle was packed to the brim, and still they couldn't take it all. This was the stronghold of a major South American drug lord. That day, the Kingpin's family had taken most of the guards to church, leaving only a skeleton crew behind. The soldiers eliminated the remaining guards, infiltrated the compound, and eventually found the drug lord himself in a hidden room, taking him out on the spot. After loading up their vehicle, they torched the entire hideout. However, some of the guards who had left earlier returned ahead of schedule. The team of ex-Special Forces operatives immediately shifted into combat mode. Facing what amounted to a ragtag militia of drug dealers, they had the upper hand. Working in perfect coordination, they quickly neutralized the enemy. Then they gunned it straight through the iron gates, escaping the compound and calling in a helicopter for extraction. But 2.7 tons of cash proved too much even for that massive aircraft to handle. After all, this was $250 million. Nobody wanted to leave it behind. They finally managed to get $50 million into the cabin while the remaining $200 million hung from cables beneath the aircraft. After crossing the rainforest, the helicopter continued over the Andes Mountains. But the cash was so heavy that the aircraft couldn't climb high enough to clear the peaks, forcing them to lighten the load. With no other choice, they dumped the entire $50 million from the cabin, which barely helped the situation. Just when they thought they might make it over the mountains, the helicopter's transmission failed from the overload, forcing an emergency descent. To save their lives, they had to jettison the remaining $200 million as well. The aircraft finally crash-landed, bouncing and skidding across a wheat field. Fortunately, everyone survived. But when they climbed out of the wreckage to search for that $200 million, they found villagers had already surrounded the money bags. Clearly aware of what was inside, the team decided to try negotiating first before resorting to force, attempting to get the villagers to return the bags. But the locals claimed this was their territory, so the money belonged to them. Plus, they were all armed with machetes and didn't look like the friendly type. Not only did the soldiers' diplomatic efforts fail, they actually made the villagers angrier. That's when one villager suddenly pulled a knife, and the team immediately fought back. After subduing the troublemakers, the rest backed off. The soldiers then found the village chief and placed $5 million in front of him. This money served both as compensation for the families of the dead and as payment to buy 5 horses from the chief to transport the remaining cash. The chief agreed. However, as they were loading up to leave, a boy in red blocked their path. He was the son of one of the men who'd been killed. But after some persuasion from the chief, the boy let them pass. When they rode through the jungle and reached a cliff edge, one horse stepped into thin air and tumbled down the precipice. After a violent crash, tens of thousands of bills danced through the air. Yet instead of being discouraged, they actually smiled. They still had $160 million in their hands, but getting that much money safely home would be incredibly difficult. They had to scale a mountain, and the men could only use ropes to haul the heavy money bags to the summit. Once they reached the top, they decided to rest for the night. But even huddled together, they were still freezing cold. They wanted to build a fire for warmth, but everything around them was rock. There was no fuel to be found. That's when one team member lit a stack of bills on fire. When the others saw this, instead of stopping him, they actually laughed. The captain even dumped an entire case of money on the ground to fuel their fire, and that's how they spent the night, warming themselves around burning cash. But the next day brought disaster. The money they'd stolen belonged to a major drug lord, and he'd sent people after them. They wanted to fight back, but the mountaintop offered limited visibility. They couldn't spot the enemy. The captain decided to draw the fire himself, while team member Mike led the others around to the summit to eliminate the threat. Once in position, the captain spotted a gunman in the distance and quickly took him out, but the gunshot attracted more enemies. One enemy managed to circle behind the captain, and by the time he noticed, it was too late. He took a bullet. His teammates immediately returned fire and killed the attacker, but they'd lost their captain. With no time to grieve, they wrapped their leader's body and pressed on. But the already heavy money bags, combined with the weight of a grown man, seriously slowed them down. At this rate, they'd either collapse from exhaustion or get picked off by their pursuers. After discussion, they decided not to abandon their captain, so they threw dozens of money bags into a valley, with each man carrying just one bag as they continued their escape. Finally, under cover of darkness, they reached the nearest town, a crucial stop on the route to the harbor. However, the drug lord's men had already gathered there, ready to intercept them. Taking advantage of the night, they hijacked a truck and raced toward the coast. When enemies gave chase, Mike, sitting in the back, shot out their tires. Then their extraction boat appeared, and the team successfully boarded and escaped. By the time they made it home, their original $250 million had dwindled to just $5 million. None of the four men kept any for themselves. They left it all for their captain's family. After they'd had time to recover, one of the team members pulled out a piece of paper with coordinates marking exactly where they'd abandoned those money bags.